card with a sweet one, bliss. Someone flicks me a bad body. So, it's another one, yeah. It's a full strong, yeah. Oh, it's another one, yeah.
What is going on, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Stay Within show. My name's Abbas and I'm here recapping all the big action from the past weekend. But before we do that, let's give a quick little shout out to our sponsor, D-Rock Clothing. As always, guys, if you've been following the channel, you know they've been rocking with us as well. No pun intended. Got my man Johnny Nelson there. But as always, if you want to support us and support the brand, iBoxingHub 24, get yourself 40% off the entire site. With that being said, let's go straight into the action as well. So on the weekend, we did have Dalton Smith versus Jose Zepeda, a big fight because we had a lot of implications for what we were going to have going forward as well. And we did have a victory for Dalton Smith, probably occurring in a way that a lot of people didn't expect. I think a lot of people, including myself, expected this to go all 12 rounds. But what we actually did see was a beautifully timed body shot in the 5th round by Dalton Smith, ultimately ending the fight. Now, with the fight itself, what I personally took away from this was Dalton Smith started off slowly, but it was down to his corner in the 3rd round that gave him a little bit of a pep talk to be like, don't fall too behind on the cause. You have to take a knockout. And then you saw that as in the 3rd and the 4th round, he then materialized into being a more aggressive fighter and then eventually getting that knockout victory. But then I think it was the fallout that everyone had the big talking point, and that was the call out to Adam Azim. And it's very, very interesting, this. Like, for a lot of people, it's a fight that we want to see. But then on the flip side, a lot of people say, okay, is an overreach from Dalton Smith, who's got a bit more experience, a bit more of a crafted career compared to Adam Azim, who's still very new, but has also racked up 11 fights. I think for me, one of the biggest things was probably the call out from Eddie Hearn. And what I want to say about that is we're getting a lot more of an aggressive Eddie Hearn. That's super interesting because previously we've had it in the past where boxing promoters have said, we're working on it. We don't know what's next. We're looking at a next potential opportunity. We're going to go back to the drawing board. But what you've seen right now from Eddie Hearn has probably surprised a lot of people in the sense that he's called out Tyson Fury after AJ gets a successful knockout victory by Francis Ngannou. He's then done the same thing when it comes to Dalton Smith. He's pushed for his fighters to lobby and put the pressure on the opposite promoters. And that's exactly where we're sitting at right now with Ben Shalom and what he wants to do with Adam Azim. Like I said, Ben's had some criticism in the past by his own fighters, Fraser Clark being one. I remember early on saying, look, they're not putting me in fights. And now, obviously, he got his fight against Wardley, which is going to be a very, very tough test for him. Adam's not been like that. Adam's been progressed in in what I would call the ideal way, in the sense that we've seen a lot of fights from him. We've seen the flashy knockouts. We've then seen him being tested, but we also see him being European champion right now. And I think because of what Eddie is and who Eddie Hearn is, because he said, look, my fight is ready to go, knowing full well that his fight is probably the guy with a bit more armor in his back pocket, meaning that he's got more fights on the resume. He's got the age. He's a bit less greener than Adam Azim. That he can do that and not be too worried. It's a very smart ploy. It's a very smart ploy. And now it puts the ball in Adam Azim's corner and Ben Shalom's corner, and being like, look, let's make this fight happen. But yeah, let's have a look at this comment as well. He wants the best fight. It's good to see. If he makes the fight we want to see, then it's brilliant in my opinion. Azim may need a couple more fights before stepping in. Yes and no. I believe Boxer will pull out the purse weight. Now, this is where I said about the Eddie Hearn thing and putting the pressure on people, putting it on them. At the moment, Eddie Hearn's in a win-win situation, meaning that if his fighter makes the fight, great, another big payday for both guys, especially for him as well. If they don't, they can't particularly lose because it's like we made it, them guys didn't do it. And again, as you mentioned before, boxer pulling out the purse bid caters towards Matchroom. Matchroom also have the ability to get Dalton Smith into other fights when it comes to the WBC anyway. In terms of needing more fights, now this is where obviously me being a fan of Adam as well, it becomes a bit controversial where I say if you're good enough, you can get the fights and you can win the fights. I understand the consensus is the fact that Adam may need a few more fights. Adam may need this. Adam may need that, which is understandable. But he may need to also taste defeat to become a better fighter. We saw with Amir Khan when he fought Brady Prescott, he tasted defeat to become a better fighter. This could be again one of them things where you fight Dalton Smith early, you may potentially lose, but as long as you don't allow it to derail your career, that's all that really matters in my eyes. And I think for me, if I'm Adam as well, I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, the first couple of rounds against Zepeda, he didn't really look that great. And a better fighter would be able to probably capitalize on that a little bit more. And again, like I said, Adam's somebody who's got a lot of quick hands, but I will also say this to balance out the argument. His last few fights may not necessarily have been what we've expected from Adam in terms of they've gone the distance, they may not been as flashy. Obviously, the last fight as well, the way that particularly ended as well, it wasn't and then the celebration and stuff as well. So there's a lot to ponder over. Let's go. A nice comment here. If Azim ducks, he'll get ridiculed for a while. People forget. I hear it, but it's just more of a case of let me just follow on this. This is spot on. Hey, I'll take that. If even Azim loses daughter, raises his profile, he can come again. Exactly. Yeah. Following on from both comments. So let's address the ducking comment. The problem with boxing right now is because I would say promoters are very more vocal, especially when you got Eddie, who's everywhere. If you look, Matchroom has a card every single way, shape, or form. And listen, Canelo fought him 3 times. We're not going to get into a Canelo debate, but the problem is because Eddie is front and center when it comes to boxing right now. If Azim doesn't take the fight, what will happen is when he's at another local event. So we got Catrell Taylor coming up next month. There will be questions about that. Sorry, not next month in May, but he's also got a card coming up in April. If we get word that obviously they're not going to make that particular fight, a question will come up straight away. Yeah, I'm not taking the bait. I'm not taking the bait whatsoever. A quick point here. What a great fight it was in Sheffield's ringside fight that Flip Mr. Hatton. What a fight. We're going to talk about Hatton very soon as well. But sticking on with the point of the duck, my only thing is, I think because of how front and center Eddie Hearn is when it comes to boxing, that's a good point actually when you think about that. If Tyson can duck David Price, who are we to say that Adam Azim can't duck Dalton Smith? The only problem is, again, we're in that social media era in boxing. And it's just like, if you're ducking him, you're scared. If you're ducking him, you're scared type of thing. And now we've got the fight. And we do have the fight. So yes, it's not too much. Personally, if I was Adam and the money lines up, you take it. I will always say this. I think the only people who can look negative on boxers for taking big fights are people who don't understand the game of boxing. If your obsession is with the O, it's not going to get you anywhere. And again, I will always go back to one particular man. Amir Khan, in his 15th or 16th fight, lost to Brady Prescott on his pay-per-view debut. And 6 or 7 fights later, we're sitting and we're looking at him as world champion. So again, at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. You take a fight if it's available to you. I think as fans, we want to see it. Do I think we get it in 2024? I don't personally see it myself. But we can see in 2025. I think I've seen some people say this, and I do think it's a little overrated personally, in the sense that this is a fight we can wait on. We don't really need to wait on. With all respect to both fighters, I don't personally think we need to wait so much on Adam Azim versus Dalton Smith to be a next big fight in British boxing. Personally, there isn't that animosity there yet. Where it generates from is making the first fight. If that fight particularly goes close, just like look at Catrell Taylor. The first fight happened. Let me just quickly read this comment. Big up, bro. Everyone said Carlford took Kalzaki, which he didn't. It just never made sense at that. Look at the career callback. Fair enough. Fair enough. For me, I'm just in an era where we're in a zone where yes, guys are fighting guys now, and we just want to see it happen. We're seeing it with Saudi Arabia, with His Excellency making fights, and I think now we might want to see that bit more on the domestic stage. And it's like, let's not wait 2 years for this fight when it doesn't need to wait 2 years. We can make a secondary fight in 2 years, but why not make it whilst it's available to both guys? But again, I expect to see that fight in 2025 potentially if it's there. If not, it's not the end of the world. As I say, both guys will end up clashing with each other at one point or another. But let's have a look at the comment with Adam Azim. What else is he gonna do from Raw? That's the thing. I think they're looking to vacate the belt to start off with, and then from there, it is. You're right. This is what I mean as well. Like the hype is there. Like you have a fighter you have a fight that everyone wants to see. So if you're not making it, but then you're headlining other cards or being on an undercard, it just doesn't hit as much. So again, I always say if the fight's available, the money's available, and you can make it, why not? Just go ahead, do it. If you've got the belief in yourself that you know the type of fighter you will be, whether it's now, whether it's in 5 years, one particular loss is not going to define your career. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people, when you've seen Adam, we know the potential he's got. And that's why I'm at this particular point in time when I look at someone like him and I think if you can beat him now, you can beat him later on. I think you beat him later on, probably with a bit more experience, but give it your best shot, make the fight, get people constantly talking about your name. And again, I'll say this, when you partner up with Matchroom in any sort of capacity, your reach just grows a lot more. Like, don't get me wrong, Boxer has a reach. Boxer definitely has a reach. But Matchroom are significantly more. Like we said, we've got the greatest boxer of my generation, Saul Canelo Alvarez, and what he achieved with Eddie Head. And we're seeing what's happening right now. So let me just quickly read this comment before we go ahead. Fraser Clark react for Dubois as boxers seem determined not to make fights against Matchroom, and this is where boxers are going to fall out, because what we're seeing is a certain Frank Warren with Queensberry. Now, don't get me wrong, that is because they've been paid the big money. Jorge Linares, Adam Azim. See, this is my point. Linares is probably more tested on the world stage, but why not? Instead of making that fight, that yes, for boxing fans, they'll be interested, but for casuals who you want to then draw in to become boxing fans of the domestic scene, personally, I would take Dalton Smith. I think it does more for you to fight that, because that's the fight that people are clamoring for from the outside world. And especially, again, if we're taking a lot of our bigger boxing fights over to Saudi Arabia, which is fine, let's just settle this domestic scene. Let's constantly give fans a reason to want to go to Sheffield, a reason to go to Manchester, Liverpool, the O2, etc., etc. Let's do it. I'd have to double check that if he has done. Eddie also, if you shout out, people listen. Raw, you're not gonna get me to bait out. We know what the Eddie Canelo relationship is as well. And yeah, I've seen an interview where he basically does indicate that it doesn't matter. Canelo fights everybody. See, there's a comment here that I want to bring up, and Azim's problem is that he's too quiet. And now I hear it, because at the end of the day, you're a boxer. You just go about doing your job, which is boxing. And then your promoter is meant to do the rest for you. But the only problem is, it's when you have, like I said, when you have one side who are significantly more louder, the pressure then gets put onto you. And it's very convenient that Eddie does this, knowing full well that next week on Easter Sunday, we have a big boxer card where, as much as the fights are going to be a topic of conversation, Ben Shalom is 100% probably going to be asked about 3 to 4 times about this particular fight. What's the situation? What's the situation? Can you give us a bit more? We've seen this, we've seen that. So it's very calculated. Azim's promoter, yeah, Ben and the team boxer, etc. They are, but I think it's because they also have their card coming up. I think 2024 is going to be a big year for boxer in the sense of you kind of have to collaborate. Would work better if he had his own big manager to play by putting Eddie down. I hear it completely. But I think there's a point that you made beforehand, and that was shout out to you, Raw, as well, and everybody else in the comments, which was about the collaboration effort. And I think right now we're in a point of view where if you look at boxing, yes, the money's going to Saudi Arabia, but now with us in the UK, a company like Boxer, a promotion like Boxer needs to collaborate, because if you're not, you're going to fall behind. There's only so much that, unfortunately, as much as people laughed at Eddie Hearn, the zone is platform A. Everything else right now is platform B. So yeah, I think that. I think, what about Richard Comey if he wants to make a statement on the world, say if he doesn't want the Smith fight? I'm not 100% sure. Again, it's just, so the way I'm looking at this is from the point of view that as a boxing fan from the outside looking in to try to get eyes, you want to get the fight that you're probably most talked about, because at the end of the day, people will always say, he ducked, he ducked, he ducked for a while. It sticks for a little bit until you then put in a performance. We have to presume Azim's not as good as they hype it. I think Azim is that guy. I think Adam Azim is that guy. But I will also say that the last few fights probably haven't lived up to that hype that he initially had. But I'm down for it. Like I said, for me personally, make the fights that we want to see. And if everything doesn't turn out the way it's meant to be, it's not the end of the world, because if you believe in yourself and your promoter believes in you, you should then be able to still excel. Like I said, I always take the Amir Khan blueprint. He took a fight on pay-per-view on Sky Box Office, got beat, and then just basically excelled in his career in the States. I'm not saying that's going to happen for Adam. I'm not saying that's going to happen for Dalton, but it's there. That particular blueprint being there just showcases to me that you can do it as long as you take the opportunity. Yeah, go on. If this fight happens, look, I've said it before, I will still side with Adam personally. And again, that comes from an element of biasness, because I am more of an Adam Azim fan. He's not ready for a world. What is his level? I think he's ready. I personally believe Adam Azim is ready. The only problem is, I think, what you have is promoters trying to protect the O. He's not really either whether to prove or disprove whether he's good or not. He's done well what he's been handled with so far, and it's a wait and see situation. Exactly. Now, my point is, you don't need to wait and see. Let's go into the deep end. Like, there's only so much you can do, and I think this is a promoter problem where you want to protect the O. Like you said, on this weekend, we're saying Fraser Clark go into the deep end, right? Now, unless that's come from Fraser himself as well, which I think it might have, because he's called out Ben in the past. I think Adam potentially needs to do the same as well, especially if throughout this next week we're gonna hear talks about it murmuring more and more and more, especially with it being fight week for the guys as well, and then we hear Ben questioned on it. So yeah, that's my little 2 cents on this. I think Eddie Hearn, again, he is the smartest promoter in boxing. He knows when to do it. He knows the perfect execution, and he's done it again. I said it before on the previous show, and fight Wardley Sparks Fraser in 6 for me. Now, let me just actually stick to this point. Now, this would be super interesting as well. If Fraser Clark gets the job done against Wardley, what we're gonna get is a bit more interest in probably, I think, Ben Shalom pushing Dalton and Adam Azim. If not, and it depends on how it happens, I think we're going to get it pushed back. I think that's probably where we may get a pushback. I think, funny enough, this particular fight can potentially look at where we're going to see the next trajectory of these guys going forward. But I do want to just move on to obviously what we saw with Campbell Hatton as well. Now, unfortunately, he lost against James Flint. Now, I say unfortunately, I don't really mean that. I don't know why I said that to start off with. You took a fight and you lost. And I think the conversation needs to be had is, are we putting too much pressure on people who have a surname to excel like their predecessor? And I think we are at that point with Campbell Hatton. Look, at the end of the day, because he carries the Hatton name, he's going to be on TV cards. But when you're fighting the fight that you're fighting on the past weekend against Flint, and you don't really perform, like, I think it's time to take a step back. That's what I'll say. I'm not saying he's a bad fighter. I'm not saying anything of that nature whatsoever. I would just say if I'm Matchroom right now, I'm sitting down with him and I'm like, just take a step back and let's just reassess. Let's put you on. Let's have a read of this. So Jimmy Joe Flint was fantastic, but it was just a step up too quickly for Campbell Hatton. He ain't his dad and he should be treated as Ricky. Exactly my point. Let's just have him be himself. And if that is the case, then yeah, we can strip him back from a few cards. He can fight, continue to be active. I love that about boxers who are continuously active. When I look back and I realized he had 15, 16 fights, approximately that much, I was kind of surprised. But I love the activity. The only thing I'll say is I think the fact that he's always on the main card, I think that can hinder him a bit as well. I'll also say this, yeah, like you guys said before, the level going up. You saw that when it came to the latter rounds, if you are about that particular level, what's that phrase that you bite on the gum shield, you dig deep, etc. And you didn't really see that. You saw Campbell just flutter away and basically lose. Um, and I do believe Campbell Hatton can come back. The only thing I'll say is because, just let's go on Jam's Boxing Chat's comment. And like you said about Azim, if you lose to Smith, he can come back. Exactly. He can come back. The only thing I'd say is I want him to probably take a step back. I do believe he can come back, but I want him probably a bit different if Adam was to lose. Let's take a quick little comment from Raw here. Considering how much his dad and uncle know about boxing, strange they moved him this way. I agree. I think put into the spotlight too quickly is an issue for me in general. And what I would have personally preferred is the fact that he just goes about his job and just does it. And I think that's where now we're looking at Matchroom and we're like, let's put it to one side. It's a defeat, but we go again. I think Anthony Crawler's brother, he's also on a card coming up in a few weeks' time as well. Again, somebody with a name who's following a big name as well in boxing. So again, he's another one where we're going to look at his career and see how that develops and what type of similarities we're going to have there as well. And hopefully, again, being with Matchroom, they don't just constantly keep pushing the surname. Push the first name. We don't need to push the surname so much. Let them guys develop in their own particular way. And I think now, if I'm Matchroom, if I'm Ricky, if I'm Campbell, I just take a step back. Step too quickly, let him go back to English level and realize he ain't his own father, he ain't his father, he's Campbell, but let him build exactly. Just build your own legacy. Do not get me wrong, having a certain name gets you into the door, gets you into the conversation, gets you into the contracts. But it's sustaining that, being able to live up to it. And if we're honest, living up to Ricky Hatton's name is very, very, very difficult to do. So just keep the Hatton name, obviously, but just go about it. Make it your own. Don't make it, oh, I'm Ricky Hatton's son type of thing. You don't need to do that. And I think that's what we need to now see going forward. With that, we are going to wrap up today's episode of the Stay Weighed-In show. As always, guys, drop a like, share, subscribe, follow the socials. Look, guys, we're posting daily content, live shows. You guys are getting involved, so we love that. Also, this week we've got the return of PVC boxing. Well, just quickly, what a shit show, if I can say that. That is going to be right now with what it seems. It's not on Amazon. If for everybody outside of the US. You've got to see that on Triller, I believe, or Fight TV, whatever you want to call it. Again, super interested to see what they do as well. And then obviously we got Boxer as well, so we're gonna also recap what they're gonna be doing as well. And I'm sure the guys are gonna be able to break down everything for you. We've got the 5v5 as well. He's one of the greatest boxers of our generation. He's Ricky Campbell was destined to fail. Big up Abbas, great show. Love iBoxing. Appreciate that as well, man. We appreciate your comments. Without you guys, this show doesn't happen today. It's just me sitting talking to myself. But right now, I'm sitting talking to a community. That's what we love. That's why we love the lives. But as always, guys, love and peace. Again, just quickly, shout out to our sponsor, D-Rock Clothing, iBoxingHub 24. Get yourself 40% off. Until next time, guys, stay waiting.